That's a lot. Well, that's oh yeah. Well, Kangala Flash Teleshurati. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sanje Chodam
Jonam la Janju Badu the Gapsuchi Dagi Junion Gibe Toknam Ki Jolam Panja Sanga Trooper Show Shodan Zoki Jonam la Janju Badu the Gapsuchi Dagi Junion Gibe Toknam Ki Jolam Panja Sanga Trooper Show
Sanje
Jodan Zoki Jonam la Janju Badu the Gapsuchi Dagi Chunyan Gipe Toknam Ki One Banta Sangi Drupa Show Gate Para Sum Gate Body Swaha Gate Para Sum Gate Body Swaha Tayata Gate Para Sum Gate Body Swaha.
Ola so ta simje tamje ga do tabjala na ma che wa sanje go ma ro je chine jo to ba cha ye che de elbe cha jo se lab jana ka se cha jo se lab jana chu che de nyang to lang ko lang wa le shin go lo to le to je shu ma lo wa ji ko to ka zo ba ba de ke se che bo shi wa le de chu ju ge de te shi tim ji gi sam che.
And so we begin by setting our motivation to attain the state of enlightenment, the full state of enlightenment, in order to benefit all sentient beings. And knowing that to attain such a state, I must perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. To perfect those trainings, I need to have a very good understanding of them. To gain that understanding, I must rely upon a non-mistaken text or non-mistaken source. And thus it is with this in mind that I am here to listen to some teaching from the Bodhisattva's way of life as composed by the great master Shantideva. So we begin as normal as well by setting up the merit field, which consists of, in actual fact, our own root guru, but in the aspect of Shakyamuni Buddha. And so the Buddha has one face and two hands, and seated in the Vajra posture, dressed in the saffron robes of a monk, with the right hand in the earth-touching mudra, and the left hand holding an alms bowl filled with nectar. All around us are all kind mother sentient beings, beginning with the parents of this life, and then going back from life to life to life, thinking of all the parents we have had since beginning this time, who have all sustained us with tremendous kindness.
감속의 심지 탐자게 아니 내도 딕티 탐자 파 장수 장바 제소 삼삼체 아니 디 아니 가서데 가서 딜레 때는 주야겠다 개베 초 디게디 아니 가서데 도서고 도체 지대 감 용조라 아니 하다미 아니 최배제 아니 배 나서바지게 아니 배드네 최지게와 세다 제발 야추와피 추와피와라 때는 최지게와도 세다 제배 추바데 다기시네 And
so we visualize also that the figure of the Buddha is marked by three syllables: Om at the crown, A at the throat, and Hung at the heart center. Countless rays of light start to emanate from the Hung at the heart center, going out into all the 3,000 realms of existence, and thereby initially purifying the place in which all the sentient beings have been and then also that facilitating the collections of all the different merits and wisdoms that are required. And this all is kind of like this virtue is kind of made manifest as an offering to all of the Buddhas of the 10 directions. And they experience this. They become one non-dual. They abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and emptiness.
어디를 공부하셔? 뭐다 되게 되는 아니 조지 교와서 세지면 아니 투주군에 아니 뭐 조지 교와서 세지면 구성 투주 되게 말라 나봐 아니 저게 가서 랑게 두기 난가 세다 라마 투배 오면 나발 젠타네 라마 되게 고베 라마 투배 오고 되라바 팀네 아니 데 젠타바 이시바테 라마 투배 오고 뭐 예매 교수 삼사체 아니 뭐 예매 교도 어디를 자고 뉴스메 봐줘서 아니 야 라야 라마 투배 오고 투가를 위해서 빠도 매버 전에 옹길 하나 젠타 옹길 하나 젠다네 아니 대시샤바 탐적에 아니 딜라모 옹고도 수선 아니 소아다 발때네 아니 옹레 옹고 오버서다 오늘 섬을 시에는 고서 올레 옹고 아니 주일라마 제조도 내발래 아니 이시 맞아 이시기 두제가 아니 주일라마 제조 내발래 아니 가서 미규베 우켄데게 어디를 공부하셔
So again, all the qualities of all these Buddhas of the 10 directions, the qualities of body, speech, and mind, is kind of made manifest in the aspect of the wisdom beings. And these wisdom beings come to the crown of the central figure in our merit field, and dissolve into and become one with the Buddha that we are visualizing. And then the light rays emanate again from the central figure of the merit field, going out into all the different pure realms, inviting back all of the empowering deities. They arrive and they offer the nectar of empowerment, which some of which overflows at the crown, spontaneously producing the figure of Akshobhya. And so we have this sensation of the Guru Buddha as the merit field, and completely empowered and consecrated by the wisdom beings and by the empowering deities.
Wada de lama tuba ombute kuson to yenden ten dawe tawa yije tawa mudo ge tawa oden ji ya ke kasa de subject do tu je lamla la ngoba so ba sa je de rang ge tawo de subject tamja ja subject da tamja ja ane dunge ge na zo ta rang da ko ku na so chi wada de compassion ane compassion chen da de kasa de dunge na wala mi sube ninje ane de wa de de ge chamba 아니 대다 동네 탐자다 대화 탐자다 때마다 녜지면서 제가 저도 다 제마도 왔어요. 다들 제도에 내가도 소라 되나서 라마토비아 오면 공부하니 봐이나 아니 샘제 감다 매번 발라니 봐 지당와서도 견거 요바인서 지제 샘제가 도도 마주와지 매번인서 왔다 라마토비아 오면 공부하지 마도 타고 좀 지기 삼삼 공부하셔.
And so by reflecting on the qualities of the enlightened beings, of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, we develop the triple faith, pure faith, manifest faith, and the faith of conviction. And by also recalling how the Buddha, for the sake of sentient beings, developed the mind of enlightenment, then proceeded on the path with that motivation and arrived at a full and complete enlightenment, all for the benefit of sentient beings. And through reflecting on sentient beings ourselves, we, of course, initially focus on the suffering, and this finding that suffering unbearable develops this sense of compassion, wanting to place all sentient beings in happiness. It develops that sense of love in us. And then we take on a personal kind of responsibility that I will be the one to do this. To remove all suffering and to place all sentient beings in happiness. But of course, realizing how limited I am in my present state, how it's so difficult to do this even for one sentient being. But when I realized the qualities of enlightenment, seeing how the Buddha has a knowledge of all the dispositions and the personalities and the karmic combinations and so on of all sentient beings, is in that position to be able to do that, to benefit all sentient beings. In other words, to remove the suffering of all sentient beings and place them in every happiness. Therefore, I can now focus on that as my goal, to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings.
어디를 공부하시? 어디를 공부하시오? 아니, 된대게 섬자 탐제도 사제 공부 마도 지금도 토바지 선제 된대게 아니 저거 가서대 다 간제 지금 주나 좀 많이 봐 맞네. 아니 좀 맞추제가 봐 겁네. 아니 된대게 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 아니 두바들라 센토샤 아니 된대게 어다 가서 두바디 ngeveloti otene ngeveloti ani kasode rangi ninga khotola ani kasode igi achile chusu samsacha a yongso jwale ani kasode dawe jingo nyakha chusu samsacha.
And really focusing on this again, of really how, considering how it's absolutely necessary that I attain that state of enlightenment. There is no kind of other avenue or choice. I've got to attain the state of enlightenment. In order to be able to do this, I need to be able to develop the mind of enlightenment. And this is not just as a sense of artificially being able to do that. I must be able to move it from being an artificial kind of development or just thought into something that is really genuine and informing all my actions. And that when I reach that sense of, aspiring to be able to gain that sense of unadulterated, genuine mind of enlightenment, I place my mind on that in placement meditation momentarily. And from that then arises the seed syllable "ah" at my own heart center, the heart center of all sentient beings. And that transforms into the moon disk mandala seed.
어디를 고바시도 오다 되게 다외지 뭐냐 가와자 랑니가 가도록 어때서 내 소소도 오다 란첸생 백 란첸생게 아니 상황도 좋아려다 타소 야고 쉬고 조소 선을 가고.
So really feel that this is symbolic of the mind of enlightenment established at my own heart center. And this has kind of really dealt a sort of a very strong, kind of fatal, hopefully, blow to my own self-cherishing attitude. And from that, then we can arise very much rejoicing and kind of having some sense of victory over my own self-cherishing.
어다 오늘은 라완 생이 상황이 중수 삼사절과 란제지기 아니 되게 칭달을 전에 아니 다 필요 생이 상황 중수 다 야고 쇼 중수 삼사 어디는 다 현지지 제모도 셔밖에 셔바다 셔바 삼로당삼에 삼사 어다 야고 쇼 중수 삼사 what.
So have this sense of finally having gained freedom from my own self-cherishing attitude, how that has been such a devastating effect on all my lives. And this is this giving a feeling of, as this momentary sense of a fully qualified sense of freedom to be able to act and have control over my life, without even thinking about cherishing others at this point, just having that sense of rejoicing, that sense of freedom from my own self-cherishing.
다 들렸으면 담제거도 산제 공부 중에 있어 나디 아니 가봐 또 세주는 랑게 류들이 나디 랑게 셈들이 아니 류기 자체를 되는데 셈그 자체를 되는데 땅사게 셈 코라냐 아니 셈스인데 아니 셈그 같이 계진같이는 그렇게 잡았어야죠. 아니 이거 말이야. 다가 이제 류들이야 계진같이는 받쳐줘도 류스도 이거 말이야. 리그면도 다 많이 봐서 왔다 오다 나스는데 유대의 주바스는 뒤사면도 저 khoda 줘봐줘 고바시 오다 뒤사면도 선을 오다 그제 어디를 저 khoda 줘봐줘 compassion, what I think of the symptoms.
And then thinking how, when we have this idea, I will attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we're asking, what is the state of existence of that as I that wants to attain that state of enlightenment? And where is it to be found? Is it within the body, within the mind? And we look into the body, and then looking into the different parts of the body, breaking it down further and further and further, and reaching a point of not finding that sense of self. And then looking into the mind, that which actually, imputed that sense of I, the mind itself. Is it really something that I can point my finger at in the consciousness, in the past and future moments of consciousness? And again, going through that process of analysis, we reach finally a point of where we simply cannot find this sense of objectively existent sense of self, and that we can't even find that even at the atomical level. And just to arrive at that point of not finding and place our attention and focus there momentarily.
What Kaja Kasam Tagarangala Semto Sha, what the Negi Tomba Niebe, Tomba Niebe, Tomba Niebe, and Loti, and then taking because of the Ninga Hodola Tavajimo Nakawa Ti Teto, Yigi Hunchila Chusu, Samsa Chet.
And so then this mere negation of the object of negation, just finding that emptiness of mind, and that consciousness there, just finding this lack. This produces the syllable hung, and we find that hung on the moon disk mandala seat at our own heart. And then the hung first transforms itself into a white five-pronged Vajra, standing vertically upright, and then that Vajra is marked by that syllable hung as well.
Oda kanje je ngai rangxian tadu de oda ngeba niso oda re de ngeba lote rangge semda du namya ma dewa chene ta neso samsamje oda le kombaxian.
Now we think this sense of self, finding the kind of ultimate end of that sense of self, realizing that it is not something that can ultimately rely on, the body and mind at all in any way.
Oda ta kanje oda dendege tongba ngebe lote rangi kaza ta tongba ngebe lote ane yigi hongde doji kawa zenga wachila gyune ta du namya gyuwa meba tenpo chene rangi sengu yusu ane du namya ane kaso de ta matewa chene yusu pe gyuwa meba tenpo chene nene teta di kaso tongba ta de o chungsu ta di inba yinsa pe kaso de ta gasa danze da choge danze da tige tepe yongsa meba chaso ta yagu shivu chungsu samsa wadene kumbasha di xiangwane tarso ta yagu shivu chungsu samsa cha.
So really feeling that we have this emptiness of mind now symbolized by this syllable hung, and that is there with our mind of enlightenment at our heart center, symbolized by the five-pronged Vajra marked by the syllable hung itself. And that this, really represents never to be separated from this mindset, to be able to view all of, whether it's the self-grasping at a self-entity or at phenomena, that mind is kind of never going to be fall into that trap again, as it were. And we feel we have this way of being able to see reality with us, and really kind of feel that that is something powerful and rejoicing in that.
다 란젠징게 샹완에 타와 마세 아니 다 다지 마리베 샹완에 바타네 다 야고 시우 종수 서서 오다 야고 시우 종수 오서서 어디를 가고 어디를 쳐
So I have at my own heart center now that which represents the overcoming of the self-cherishing attitude, and that which is overcoming the self-grasping attitude as well. The two great issues that need to be solved and overcome to attain the state of enlightenment. This is wonderful, really wonderful.
다 근데 이마서 당문에 디기 신이 상황이 좀 되게 배 누가 개발제 샤소 다 레사이드 상매가 레마도 사제가 레죠 사이면 상매가 레산 산에 아니 권에 권도 패치는 다 아니 가서데 산제요 고마 토도 누가 개발제 샤소 서서 어디에 가고
And again, to rejoice that this is, at the very least, has given me a special potential to really establish fully qualified happiness. And as well as that, to avoid this just accumulation of contaminated happiness, but enter into the whole way of accumulating uncontaminated happiness.
어딜지다 랑게드나 세데 라마투베 고토데 다와도지 쟁가바자 랑다 랑게 타고도 심지 탐제게 두가래 다와도지 쟁가바자 어딜지 코네다 디 아니 뒤남야 마 뒤남야 디다 마테와제네 아니 베티 고네 공도 패와지 지기 삼사 대 고네 공도 패와제라 다 장주에서 돈이도 왜 싫어가 냠네디 지에와 다들 임바자 다 디저 다 고네 공도 패나 산제 고바 다 토바지 근데 산제 고바 토발라 디니가 냠네다 다 마테와지 제고도 안디 냠네 그숑 다디 가서데 숑테베 숑 쭌주비 다 숑티 로나 숑데 다 간자제 체니지기 예서 라모토베 온 komis시 어디로 kumba시
And of course, that in the merit field, our own Guru Manindra, the Buddha, has this same combination of a lotus, a moon disk, and Vajra, marked by the syllable hung at his heart center, and indeed all the kind mother sentient beings all around us, similarly so, like myself, this representation of the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness at our heart centers in the form of the moon disk and the five-pronged Vajra. And we really have this sense of never to be separated from this awareness of, and to increase our awareness more and more and more of the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness. And in order to do that, I am here this morning to listen to a text that deals with both the mind of enlightenment and the increase in our wisdom realizing emptiness, meaning the Bodhisattva's way of life. And I will listen intently to some verses from this text. Nigya Jume Truk Gilgichikti Somba Dewa Dobatan Gewala Matsunba Gelwandi.
수바 대화 다 대화 말아서 건강 되고 열어. 맞아 구조 자가 가 대외치도 구조 자가 열었다. 좋아. 대화 되고 열어다. 로다 가제 된데서 대화 되고 메시가 수가 요 말이야. 다 되네. 좋아. 대화 체요 말이야. 오다. 지금 니마 지금 대화 되고 니마 지금 대화 되고였어. 니마 니게 대화 되고 수수지게 대화 되고 대화 되다. 그것도 위에 거에 치러 봐. 그것도 위에 되게 와. 좋아. 고두이네 대대그래. 근데 인사 다 수마 대화 되바다. 개와라 미좀바 개와서 다 대화 되고는 대외 줄을라 거로. 대외 줄을 말아봐이나 대화 용도고 말와. 다 진짜 디수고 열어. 수마 대화 되바체. 대외 줄을 맞으면 개주도 수고 열어. 다 진짜서 수마 대화 되라. 개와라 미좀바 개와니 자와래. 점에 제부 되바다 세례절은 뇌망시. 그래서 치외수 7月松些，按照我 치외 소세 다자와 기회 동에 다게 좀서.
So we had arrived at a third subheading, which states that those who, if one wishes for happiness and does not make effort at virtue, and that is a contradiction in terms. And so it's really saying one, happiness. We all want happiness, and there's not a day passes without us wanting happiness. There's not a moment without us wanting happiness, and everybody is the same in regard to that. We all want happiness. But what this is saying is that if you do not create the causes for that happiness, then you cannot expect to experience that happiness. So this is the meaning here. It's kind of an oxymoron to say that I want happiness, but I will not make effort at virtue. And so you're not really saying I want happiness, but I want it without creating any of the causes. Verse number 13 makes this point. Much harm befalls those with little forbearance, and those who want results without making any effort. While clasped by death, they shall cry like the gods, "Oh no, I am overcome by misery."
대화 마두가 수가 요 말이야. 대화 두고 요데 대외 줄라 아니 다 가서 왔다. 뭐만 말이 배운 걸 봐. 말이 배운 게 아니 대화 되자 대외 주도 맛이 뭐 마두 받체. 보다 들려서 하되고 요 왔다. 아니 집이 뭐 쳐봐 이나야 레로 온걸 하되고 요래. 레로 온기다. 로아 레로 온걸 하되고 도다. 제일 지고 서도 하고 봐 이네. 제 교류 부수이 대고 왜 나와를 찾잖아. 그 단지 온게. 로아 단지 온 계지 집에 추전的 맛이 맞잖아요. 단지 온 교류 못 내고 이봤던데. 로라 다 된대 지금 차와다가 진대고 요러. 어떤데. 다 대교 개발을 좀봐 어서 대외 교 개발을 좀봐 매번 제부 대화 되봐 거다 거기 가서래요. 견도로 와다. 견도로와 왔다 어디를 견도자 아 동네 라 세레체데 센수 총라다 동네 충주제 당도 레마도 받잖아 당도 점버서 다 데레 당도 레마도 거들 아니 지가서데 녀바 망시 로다 충주제 당도 레마도나 아니 데라데네 다 가져져 dim 가서라다 디미스웨체도 아니 거기 디 마요에 탑시 지어야 되는데 먼저다 녀몽의 상황도 전에 다 지어와도 내가 망신다 내가 야패 줘야지 뭐도 요거도 맞지 아니 치외 송신도 사다 알아도 문제잖아 치와 예반 남친 님의 치외도 치고 가도 치보다 간장 미편 봐다 되게 내다 되는데 이네 아니 다 치와 예 차례 대한 예반 봐서 남친 예매를 다도야 소속의 지금 초함해 봤잖아요. 귤 무지 내고 여기서 아이게 나와서 찾네. 좋아다 하도 되나다 지가서데 체력 부시부시 되고 여기서 뒤 나와서 찾네. 하다 저와 유는도 내가 되봤니? 미되바 토도 배네. 미되바 토도 배네네. 기회 동행에 좀 봐주러서다. 델레지 대바이나 남셔도다 치와용도 아니 치와 용주 다 줘버려. 아니 되네 치산에 아니 저게 되게 용하게 아니 줄줄 마도 받지. 아니 동에 주 빠도 매 받지다. 계지내 중원도 다 동에게 좀 받죠 받아. 다 줘버려. 와서 좀 받주러 셔 봐보죠.
And so here, again, this idea of without making any effort that the causes for virtue, being the causes of happiness, we still expect the result of happiness. We still want that happiness. And we saw how idiotic that is, really. And it's really down to ignorance. It's not knowing the connection, the cause and effect connection between, meritorious causes that lead to happiness, etc. And then also when we have such an intolerance for any kind of discomfort, like suffering and so on, you know, we're offended easily, or we can't endure much. And that increases the harm. Because, of course, when we're upset, we're entering into the realm of mental affliction, and that only exacerbates the situation, lays down further causes for further suffering in the future. And, you know, we are also compounded, of course, by laziness. When we actually know what we need to do, but we keep putting it off, like the procrastination laziness, where we go, oh, I'll get into this later. I'm busy now, but I'll get into this later and later. And this is all about grasping at permanence. You know, we're attached to the idea that there will always be more time, time that isn't, you know. And then we don't engage in the causes for happiness, but still want happiness. And that's contradictory, isn't it? We must be able to do that. And so we don't want to do anything to increase the harm, because at the time of death, we are suddenly confronted by the fact that not only is the time of death definite, but the death is definite, but the time of death is indefinite, and only our actual virtue will be of any good to us at that time. And so when we reach that point where, you know, we realize that we haven't done what we should have done, and now death is upon us, we will be very much like the long-lived celestial beings in the desire realm, who go on for eons, a long, long time living, and never having any discomfort in one moment of their life. Then suddenly they meet with discomfort. They meet with the undesirable, and they fully realize what that signifies. That not only their coming death is definite, but also the fact that they have wasted all of their long, long lives just burning up their virtue, burning up their merit, and they've done nothing to replenish that store of merit. So they realize that it's going to be fall. They will fall from this life down to a lower life because of it, and that they feel like then this sense of crying out, you know, oh no, I am overcome by a misery.
하와이나 아니 nga sabe gewa de pa zo an ten de gewa sa do sa ma do ba che an de je do an de ne da dunga ma ju ju ma do da zho sa xian me ba cha do do an dunga ge zho ba ju zho dunga ge zho ba ju zho o de de do da mu ne je ne ba chung ju mo de ge ge do ne ba chung ju je sui gu men do la 내가 첨부지도 쇠투에 호라요 말마. 내가 충주저 마소바 딜라 때네 내가 첨부디 아니 마요에 탑시 제거는 디 지금요 말. 내가 충주절라 마소바 때네 아니 몸바 말이 온게 녀몽의 상황도 전에 내가 첨부 유튜브 되기도. 내가 첨부 유튜브 되기도. 좋아. 오늘 저는 내가 충주절에 쓰고 뭐도나 아니 딜라 뺄라나 다 데데 제 쓰고 뭐도나다 내가 첨부 되다 동네 첨부 때 가서 또 그래. 삼사자네 동해 첨부 마요에 탑시 땅고 그때 이내 한거서 몸바 말이베 온게 내가 충주저 마소바체 아니 딜라 때네 아니 착당을 놓게 전에 내가도 중간에 착당을 놓게 전에 녀몽 깨전에 아니 내가 집에 유튜브 되기도 하다 몸바 말이베 온거 제대로 열어 맛이 몸바 온거 제대로 열어 아니 렌텔 몸바 되네 온거 제대로도 와
So we have to understand here the happiness that's being referred to is simply, you know, when we have this higher rebirth for ourselves, we're talking about contaminated happiness. In other words, that it is that which is used up. It's kind of like it's consumed in its very experience. And that here we must, in order to be able to consistently experience happiness, create more and more of those virtuous causes to experience this contaminated happiness. And so when we constantly experience this sense of happiness without doing anything about creating the causes to replenish it, and then we will be in a situation when the previous merit that led to the happiness is gone, and we haven't created a new store of merit to keep it going on. And so this is when, we feel this sense of despair, and that now all ahead of me is just suffering because I'm, like it says, overcome by misery. I really haven't done anything to take care of my future happiness. And the second issue here in this verse is talking about harm itself and discomfort or anything untoward that befalls us. How, if we are so brittle in our reaction that we are overcome by small harms and allow then ourselves to get into, the situation of not bearing those small harms, allowing attachment and aversion to take over, and then mental affliction following on from that. And we create, therefore, more suffering on top of the suffering we're already going through, on top of that, because we haven't been able to deal with it skillfully. And this is really about, an ignorance with regard to the how suffering is actually experienced, how suffering is accumulated, how the causes of suffering are accumulated, and so on. And that and this both this self-grasping and the self-cherishing attitudes are at play. And so we exacerbate the suffering that we are experiencing, as well as laying down causes to experience powerful suffering again in the future. And so this is a situation we must enlighten ourselves about to actually realize what is going on. And that if we are able to handle small sufferings, it's essential that we are in order to give us a better chance of handling greater sufferings in the future, or to offset greater sufferings in the future.
두가고다 대가마도 받잖아 동네 충주제 메서 받잖아 아니 동네 첨부야 유튜브다나 다고 몽배 온거 제대기도 와 좀 제도나 자 충주 쓰고면 첨부 가봤어도 그래 근데 쓰고 매봐이나 아니 첨부 주모도 탑시 제국으로 와 어디래.
And so the reasoning here is that if I can't handle a small discomfort or suffering, then how am I going to handle the greater discomfort, the greater suffering in the future? And on top of that, then to reason also, if I train myself to really work to transform my attitude towards smaller discomforts and smaller sufferings, and then not only am I feeling better at a moment, but also I am actually stopping the greater suffering from arising in the future, because I'm not allowing mental affliction to control the situation.
어디 다가는 제 랑게 류덴데 아 셴다면저 미 류덴디는 대조고 류덴이 다 대조고 류덴 쓰긴데 아니 계지레레네 아니 저게 가서데 타바다 탐제 캠베게네 유튜브 통에 어떤데 뷰다 보여 되게 안 다다 먼저 디기 세야데 삭제게 디기면 가양 먼저 거쳐고 요마데 상매게 디기 주에 다도 산제게 디기야 주투에게 dende게 누바 dende게 줍투긴 게 아니 누바데 대조고 류덴들 요바데 ngotuye ta dende ge chbo chena ani chiwa nge namche ngime dende inde oda 다 단단한 마주나 탐해봐. 뒤야 로아다 좀 타자. 뒤야 단단한 마주나 탐해봐. 뒤야 아니 지금 대대게 쭉 하나로 줘야게. 로아다까지 로아다 로아 산지를 쭉 하나로 줘야게. 배주 주고에. 어다들 이제 차되기도. 처음 뭐네 삼로 당전에 아니 되게 제대는 아니 가서데 지제 최소 조화지. 로아 지제 최소 조에. 직소구도. 뒤에 최대에 아니 장주사 돈이도 왜 냠내를 줘
So it's really important to reflect on this particular issue from several different points of view, and to do so frequently. That we are in cyclic existence. This is the reality we're in at the moment. I am a denizen, or one who is living in cyclic existence. I am subject to the law of cause and effect, and the reality of death. This is all of what I need to take into consideration. I'm also born a human being, and I can really establish that as a precious human rebirth by really dedicating my moment by moment my effort to create the causes for enlightenment, to create the causes for that which moves from contaminated happiness to uncontaminated happiness. And most importantly, to reflect on the reality of death, that the death is definite, that the time of death is indefinite, that only my virtue will be of benefit to me at the time of death. And the conclusions upon reflecting on those three aspects of death: one, upon reflecting on the fact that death is definite, I make the conclusion that I must engage in spiritual practice. The conclusion at the end of reflecting on that the time of death is indefinite is that I must not waste time anymore. I must engage in that spiritual practice straight away. And then the conclusion, having reflected on that only virtue will be of benefit to me at the time of death, is that therefore I will really try to turn every moment of my remaining life to spiritual practice, just solely to spiritual practice. And that means really to lay down the causes for increasing my awareness of the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness. That is most important.
어디래 더그래 장주섬도 돈이도베 셰라게 심바지 좋아이나 아니 개와 가리 잡아네 아니 탐제케베 줄로 줘되기도 와 탐제케베 줄로 줘도 아니 사메기 대회기 줄로 줘되기도 와 다다다 장주거사다 돈이도베 셰라게 되네 마스바 이바이나 아니 짐바 땅와 추dim송와 서바 공바 가리 잡아이네 코에 줄로 줘되기도 와 삭제 대회 줄로 줘되기도 와 진짜 디기 줄로도 줘고요래 디기 줄로 줘고 다네 삭제게 디기 줄로 줘되기도 와 다디 잡아이나 곧 세지도 와 편도의 체지도 와. 다 상면에 줄어줘도 안고 체면도 와. 로아. 아니 로아 어디 체면 봐지. 아니 대화대 아니 대화 생이 봐지. 동해 그라시 많이 봐지. 근데 사제게 대화되게 된가 동해 그라시 차되기도 와. 교회 동해 소리질라 아니 대화 거는 좋되기도 와. 좋되기도 와. 다 된데가 마요에게 개와 주베들라 다 차진 개치주 가서 장주스다 돈이도 베셔라고 스바치에들도 되니그서는 다 집바 당원에 추dim송만에 서바고마이나 추dim송바이나다 아니 땡에진 고바이나 다 셔라 되게 가리 고 제바 임바이나야 아니 지금 산제 줄로 줘디를 치기도 와 진짜 상매게 레산 그래서 상매게 디기 줄로 줘디기도 와
So this emphasis on the really establishment of the mind of enlightenment combined with the wisdom realizing emptiness as one's main practice is very, very significant, and because it is the virtue which is going to not only always lead to a cause, or always will be a cause for enlightenment, but also it is the cause, they are the causes that will lead to uncontaminated happiness. So that's really crucial distinction to make. If without the motivation of the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness, we engage in acts of generosity, ethics, and patience, etc., these are virtuous causes, no doubt, but they will only lead to contaminated happiness. And the problem with contaminated happiness is, one, that it is limited, and two, that it is in fact in the nature of suffering. And so here it's extremely important that in the course of our wanting to establish genuine happiness, we must aim for uncontaminated happiness, that which is not limited, that which is not in the nature of suffering, and therefore, to engage in all of our virtuous actions with the motivation of the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness is crucial. So anything we do with that motivation, be it the practice of generosity again, ethics, patience, enthusiastic effort, meditative concentration, wisdom itself, all those causes become the causes for enlightenment, number one. Number two, the causes for uncontaminated happiness.
What a little. And Marazo Tuegi Tikiti, Tiki Winnet, that dilated Yogodo. Marazo Tiki Gazana, Gaza Suyin and Tiki Tugumes and Michi Yomarwa. Simja Suyin, Tudu in a Tiki Tuegua, Tiki Tueg to Kozo, could you tell Yorba? Could you tell Yorba? Or and call Yada Kuna and such a chabal on the trot, what Tiki to the Trotic Yorba. Roatan, could you tell Tiki to could you tell Yorba? And Tiki there call Nimachi Nimani Ketabada, did you go with some Mikanga Wajaga, Tiki Mo was a Michi Yomari. And then Tiki the good in the Gogu Yasana, Kanga, whatever Sigurata, Gazette Yoba Gogi Sigurata, Mendo. Koduine Tiki Gogu so that Tanga Tiki Lochico, Lonico, Tiki Gomes, Suma Yomara. That then they get Tiki Gona, then they get Tiki the Jugares and that Jajus Tony to Beshara Mirda. That's some make Tiki Majona, Tuname Yon to Tiki Delish. That's such a ticket. Yabutse Jona, could do it to me like Tiki sort of music to take it to. Rota, then there's a day, then they get Tiki to do to not Tiki the Jugarisha. Say Jona, that you the Jajus Tony to Beshara Mirisha, till it should be judging Midua. Midua, what did it do? What did it?
And so, it's very much kind of like almost a throwaway thing, is that, when we talk about I want happiness, because it's so ubiquitous. Everybody wants happiness. There's no person who you've ever met who says, no, I want suffering instead. It's even animals, want happiness. They are driven by that way. Even their movements towards something better, something better, something happiness. And we are no different. And we want this, not just momentarily, is it? We want it to endure, lasting, genuine happiness. I mean, you don't meet people in conversation and they talk about having happiness for, oh yeah, I'd like happiness just for a year and then I'll go back to suffering. It's not like that. People want a long-lived, enduring happiness, again and again and again and again and again. But to be able to do that, then one must have naturally, ask the question, what, therefore, are the causes to actually bring about such happiness, such a long-lasting, genuine, and unlimited, uncontaminated happiness? And that the only answer is the causes of that kind of happiness, of such happiness, are laid down by the motivation of the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness. So it's crucial that we understand what these causes actually are, what they mean, if we really want happiness. And so the fourth of this set of subheadings is that an exhortation to really strive at the means or the method for liberation from suffering. Verse number 14 states, relying upon the boat of a human body, free yourself from the great river of pain. As it is hard to find this boat again, this is no time for sleep, you fool.
so ane kowe dungenge chubo chile ane dretuwa kishi sada kowe dungenge ane chubo dile ane dretuwa dita chekuburas kishi ta de madeba ina dendege danda tobe duydila duydi pechu matang jenne ane dere la deba na madena ane duyde dabote chine nye kaw ta duyde dabote yangyo dende nye yungu ribasana wada yungu mares kasa duyde joye de gyume gemele jowa mare accident mare di gyula tene jowa yinto ene tsuri nambada be sheso chiso pache jogo joja molon tuma me ba 참자와 delish kogodo ene gyu delish malana yongu marwa tenza jude chine lae nye kawyasa mongba she da dele donde hamogo 좀 고통 되건데 또 mongba sekwa mongba she pene 주니베 뒤소 다 니베 뒤소 아니 다 지가서데 니 말로가 전에 다들 가서데 가서데 데데게 고코는 마데베 전에 뒤소 니 말로가 전에 냠도 랑와 자고서 다 데데게 다 지가 가서데 디르 베즈 마자 전에 효양라 마데바 전에 다 고코는 니라 소바 데데로 고코는 마데바 전에 아니 냠도 랑고 그랬어 뒤디 베주 땅도 받지 그랬어 랑와 자고 셔보고 참
And so this verse and this kind of metaphor here of talking about this boat of the precious human rebirth of leisure and endowment, and that I'm relying upon that, we can really sail beyond the suffering of cyclic existence, the great ocean or the great waters of suffering, and that it's important to realize this. Now, we have, attained such a birth, but the effort that is required of it is missing. And so it's kind of like understanding that on the one hand, it is absolutely no accident that we have attained precious human rebirth in this life. It is that, which is like everything else, has to have the result, which has to have been based on very specific causes. And the causes for a precious human rebirth are laid out as stainless ethical conduct, practices of generosity, and aspiration to attain a precious human rebirth. They almost come together. It's no accident at all. They must all come together to give us this opportunity. And the second part of this verse is detailing the fact that if we don't make every effort with this great boat to be able to transport us beyond suffering, then it's kind of very difficult to actually attain such a precious human rebirth again in the future. And therefore, saying this time is no time for laziness, for sleep, you fool. No time to be so self-deceived into not putting every effort into spiritual practice, you fool. And so it's time for practice. And so therefore, it's this exhortation for us to realize what a golden opportunity this is, and therefore to take advantage of that opportunity.
다 몽베 주스 니마로서 니마고 수고요 말에 니마로서 다 니코와는 신전에는 배주 마당하자 마데스 대적을 리덴데 가드네 배주 당도 받지 그랬어.
So it's really saying, this is no time for sleep, you fool, is the sense that, look, you have the precious human rebirth here, and it's like the same as if you are asleep at the wheel in terms of being able to really steer that boat properly and to make the most of your opportunity of a precious human rebirth and all the advantage that it gives you. It's saying don't sleep means don't be, stupid and waste this opportunity.
지소 파진들로 몰란 대화에 참여하도 그 용토에 걸어미도가 다 용에 임바는 미일리데 된적을리데 녀바 된지감에 연구해 지래도가 다 단단 소소 된적을리데 녀바가 대가라 수진 남바다베 시소 지소 파진들고 도와자 몰란 대화에 참여 된데 비다고 그저 제투고도 ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 들이 니마지라 그저 제투고도 가상 그저 제샤 다왕가마 그저 제샤 롱가마 그저 제샤 디가가 삼로 다오나 뭐다 비다고 쉬우지도 빼면서 공부해도 베르베 거버도다 근데 미 루덴 데슬레버가 디아 된적을 루덴 네버가 된데시 두배 카보 있는데 아니 다 카보 있는데 아니 다 루덴 샤바간다 좀 하도에 소리죠 왔다 좀 토야 걸어요 말이야 최저보다 미코 다다 된적을 루덴 네버가래 나라도 그 비지 수제는 최저보다 막고 소샤기도 와 오늘 전 된적을 루덴 최저보다 컴바로 와 대화게 저바 주상을 루덴 들어와 최지발로 컴바들 나라도 마콤바 소화시게도 다 그저 된적을 루데 많이 받으라 그 란신 그거 마콤바 차티어래 란신게 마콤바 차티거래 어다 된데인데 아니 그 소투에 거라 매대가 저래도 된데 이제 주디 친에 니가 위해서 된데 이제 다다다 니바들라 아니 배주 땅도 받고 그랬어 어디 소다 어디래 다들 이마자 랑게 류데데 된적을 류데 이마 워트바체 워트는 된적을 류데가 폐유디가 심바체 연대디가 심바체 아니 연대디가 배주 땅도 받고 구도
So here also is pointing out the opposite. If we are in the lower realms, and it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to create the causes that could get us back again into a precious human rebirth. So if you think about it, how difficult is it to engage in proper ethical conduct, of practicing, any of the 6 perfections like generosity, or making the stainless aspiration or prayers? As a lower realm being. You think about it, it's almost impossible. And so kind of when we actually have attained that which is almost impossible, a precious human rebirth, we have to actually really stop and reflect on the amazing potential that there is inherent in that actual rebirth. There's so much possibility, that we can fully turn our minds to, good ethical conduct, of practicing the 6 perfections, of making aspirational prayers. But also at the same time, we also must be aware of how rare it is to have this opportunity, how difficult it is to actually attain it, and keep, reflecting on that in order to counteract, that particular laziness of really thinking, oh, I'm so busy. I will get to, proper practice once I get my tasks finished. I have so much on my list to do. And, when it talks about, in Precious Human Rebirth, freedoms and endowments, this is a freedom. to be able to focus on what is important in the Dharma. And that if we are then, just increasingly making our lives busy, what we're doing is naturally robbing ourselves of one of those freedoms. And that then it becomes not a fully qualified precious human rebirth. Therefore, it's really important, in order to use our precious human rebirth properly, we need to recognize what we actually have and to see how beneficial it is to understand the qualities that make for a precious human rebirth. And when we have that full appreciation of the opportunity, then we can really put that precious human rebirth to to use it to its maximum capacity.
Koso de teacher to Marwata, Peju down to Marwat, Ran la Tenjogo Luden you water, any Tenjogo Luden Peju Karaka Yawatu, Watona, you intend water one, any Tenjogo Lude Chuse Diana, Tenjogo Lude, Peju Lopatayla, any Pansim Kigwa. Pansim Kigwa. Narado Dada, Tenjogo Luden, Nimaji Cholachiva. 니마제 장주거서 동니 도베 셔라고 삼로 땅마도 받으라 방심 개요 말에 니마지라 돌아 직동 니동 좀 매바 차선 빼면서 방심요 다른 게들이 그거 빼 쇼트스 로 장주거서 동니 도베 냠내 제라네 소야 치받으라 가야 방심요 말와 방심요 말에 다들 게 뒤주 돌아서 장주거서 콘토모서 동니 도베 셔라 콘토모서 삼로 가야 매바차 들이 니마도 돌아 동라 직제 라이는 들 아마서는 또 쇼제 방심 개 되죠 다 뺏사스
So when we don't see the absolute incredible advantage of a precious human rebirth, and then we can't use it in its proper way. We lose out on that opportunity, and worse again, we may misuse that precious human rebirth. So it's a question of what we are putting value on. And this is an exhortation to really value our precious human rebirth, this incredible opportunity. And, it's kind of like, look at our situation at the moment and compare, the fact that we waste a day of our precious human life without engaging in reflecting on the mind of enlightenment or the wisdom realizing emptiness or really going after virtue. It doesn't cost us a thought. There's no real regret there. We don't even reflect on that. However, if we were to lose $1,000, that would cause tremendous angst and pain for us. We deeply regret that. Oh, what a terrible day. What a disaster. I lost $1,000. And so it's kind of really showing us where our value system lies, how much importance we place on money versus our spiritual practice. And so it's kind of really showing that the attitude should be swapped here, that, to lose a day, to lose a moment without reflecting on the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness in the context of a precious human rebirth is something tragic, whereas just losing mere money is nothing.
네체데 당금은 도와. 그래서나 먼저게 대적을 류된게 똑같이 깨요 말과. 대적을 류된 깨지 뭐 이미 똑같이 깨요 말해. 예바니요 말해. 예바 많이 해도 보다 대세자는 자도 어디 지레디 대적을 도 깨지 뭐래 지지를. 이네디 현도 거와. 대적을 류된 뒤 아니 대화게다 저와줘디 디게디 와서 대적을 류된 뒤 와서 벌써 간제제 딜라 아니 디가소래 지금 최종의 실업자라 맞아봤잖아요. 아니 삼종 거네 좀장 타고 리고전 좀장 망고 삼로다네 딘네 랑도 윙게바 텐도에 제메바 인자 안고 시우시우 지금 린다스요 말이 랑도 윙게바테 아니 녜바녜바텔라 아니 딜라 콤네 아니 검주불로게요 말이 왔다 텐데 인도 아니 거시기 콜 딜라 린다시고 시우지 샤투문도 와 샤투문도 와 wada ti chabar wada ti shatuba chaba ina tenjo go luden de yabo go tenjo luden ge tokba ji keba ina an tenjo luden chola ma do shu pen ge wa wada de re
And so, it's really unfortunate that when, we don't see the value, the true value of a precious human rebirth, then we can't employ it in its best way, in the maximum, kind of to its maximum potential. And that's extremely sad. We can talk about it, we can, we can understand it to a certain extent, but all of that is just coming from an other powered source. We read it or somebody's told us and so on. Now, we still lack the self-powered understanding where we really own it for ourselves through reflection. The wisdom arises from contemplation, and particularly the wisdom that arises from meditation. We still haven't got the full appreciation of the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments that make up a precious human rebirth. If we did, then we would be using every moment of that precious human rebirth for benefit, and we would be extremely aware of wasting even just one moment of that precious human rebirth.
Right. 다주 냐와라 게도나 추그 자상에 고고 말해. 아니 동양게 나는 동양 녀한테마도 아니 개와사도 주에 걸어 고가 거마도 이달에 게대와이나 다주 이달에 게이나 사주 투조 코란 드라마지 과제네 강에 테네. 대도고 최지에 코란 삼로 코란면도가 뒤둘라 게다나 아니 지게 사와라 소바타 아니 망부게 뉴뉴라 투즈 당와서 왔다 간자 인데제 생게 고주와라 친제네 아니 최주에 코란 거 디가도 가서래 다 간자 좀 디가서데 렌지 데모 바체네 그 최코라 두투에 코라 민도가 로아 최코라 두투에 민도가 되는 제가 하자리보다 아니 유타고라 께와다 오모마상와다 개별 까매와다 아니 록다체 데데 이마 얘는 다 간자 데데게 가서래 다다디 최주발라 아니 대화 매경게 대화 게다 대화 매경게 나와 이다라 소바 데데 있겠네 다 데데 미콤베 게라 게바 이나 다 가리가리 용사래 아니 데다 대화 인데 아니 소소 가서 쉬워진 거죠 데데 가서 쉬워 중앙이나 다른 거저 제 가서래 디발라 제 가서래 다다디 depression second down the anxiety second the 용해 거라 요 말봐 대적을 리된 게 소속을 리된 대적을 리된 약보 좀 어쩌봐 이나 아니 디 연대 통거로 봐 연대도 통거로 봐 연대 통도 아니 소설 오다 된대게 아니 가서 연대 디게 여봐도 어쩌 되는 아니 딜 가와고는 엔티 배주 약보 당도 같은 용거로 봐 좋아
And so to really consider how unique, really, in all of cyclic existence is this rebirth, not just as a human, but a human with precious human rebirth qualities. Because if we're born into the hell realms, for example, we're so dominated by painful suffering that there is really no thought of virtue that can arise. It's so hard in a situation like that. As a hungry spirit, we are dominated by attachment to food and drink, just to gain enough sustenance to keep going. And that, again, doesn't leave any leisure time for reflecting on the Dharma. As an animal, we are dominated by benighted ignorance. Again, the struggle for survival of one being eaten by another, etc. So again, you can see yourself. It doesn't take too much thought to realize how lacking in freedom, how lacking in endowments are any of those rebirths, even the long-lived celestial beings. Again, dominated by absorption, attachment in happiness, wrong view, etc. And that, we have to kind of like really understand, what the kind of priceless quality there is to a precious human rebirth, and say that I've avoided all of these other alternatives somehow and arrived in this human existence with this ability to think like this and to have these leisures and endowments. And on the one hand, it should really rid ourselves of the kind of thinking that's so predominant in modern day, this idea of depression and anxiety about, life and everything else in it. That when we realize how advantageous we have it in our situation, and that should really put a stop to that kind of thinking. And also, when we recognize, the advantages within a precious human rebirth, the qualities that are there at my fingertips now. What an opportunity I have in this life now. We should automatically rejoice and be inspired towards virtue.
Sanje combine di to tabine di to Kiwajan Hadami Komakone di to Rua di to and Chim dis to Sudis Sabati Komku to Takaja Tiki Juga Janjuga some di come to Tony to be shut up di go Tiki Juga di to then they troop to get and Ludan Jivata or Tata she will do that dilated any depression condition good anxiety condition good. That's also a charge meta, Galasukamindu, some certain anxiety down and depression to get younger. Not a Joshua, Galasuka Rokamindu, something young dig Yorba.
And so here, just by having a precious human rebirth, I can engage in setting up a precious human rebirth in the future. I can accumulate virtues associated with ethics, with generosity, with patience, etc., etc. I can lay down causes based on a motivation wherein I take in the ideal of wanting to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and the wisdom realizing emptiness. It's all there. It's all there, easily possible for me to be able to engage in such beautiful, virtuous activity, make it part and parcel of my very existence. This is all there as as my heritage, really, of taking on a precious human rebirth. How can depression, anxiety, defeatism be possible when you have all this at your fingertips? These mindsets rise because we think, oh, I can't, or how can I, or there's so much against me, and so on. But reflection on what you have, what the opportunity you have as a precious human rebirth really eradicates all that completely. So there's no place where depression and anxiety can take hold. And so by recognizing what a great treasure of qualities we have, means that we're careful not to waste any of those qualities, any of that time.
가외 중에 타입에 담중 가외 초반에 동행주의 연화다 고소 라주 지체 가서.
So the another main headline begins by saying the abandoning of the laziness which clings to negative actions. And so this is introduced to verse number 15, where it says, having rejected the supreme joy of the sacred Dharma, that is a boundless source of delight, why am I distracted by the causes of pain? Why do I enjoy frivolous amusements and the like?
어디로다 태다 윤서라 태 로다 가다 태시 내가 다 타두기로 타두 kunla kawe ju ta chayda yu kundu kawe ju tayaba juwe ruwa tayaba ta digi tayaba juwe ane ju dambe che ruwa ta dambe che janju ka samda toni dobe sherab suishindu juwe kawe chopa nasa dendegi ane digi tamche yongege diya dendu digi yongege ane gaza dambe che suishindu juwe kawe cho di pa shachane pa pane a dungege jujuwe ane ruwata kacha rangchinze kundalane ane dunzi langlongge yewa ta ane ruwata goebala soba docha ruwata goebala soba ta docha goebala soba mikewe lela kyo jiche kade kawa birikso sheba wacha ruwata mutune dungege yongye jude tangdola dewe dewa dugu yorda dewe kyo pusum soba yongye di pa sha 미디어에 동안 탐제 영화 되게 주 땅도 나네 맞아 다제 내가 그 지체 가대 다 가르치는 저 가고 요래 그 대화를 가고 요래 동해를 가고 요래서 당문에는 대화를 가고 요한테 가와 미리서 다 단다게 천한게 단다 가대사들라 아니 가나 되게 먼저 가와 미리서 셔 오죠
And so this verse deals with the notion of really abandoning, or the abandonment of the sacred Dharma, that which is it says this kind of boundless cause of happiness in this and at all times in the future, in this life and at all times in the future. This beautiful, perfect practice of the Dharma that can allow for that. You just leave all that aside, and instead you place the emphasis of your life on just this kind of busyness of engaging in petty amusements that really amount to the causes of suffering as well, and that distractions of excitement and so on, just going for the thrill of life, which the non-virtuous actions provide. And say, why would you do this? On the one hand, you have the idea that, yeah, I want happiness, but then why would you be acting opposite to that? Why would you be collecting the causes that are opposite to being able to give you that happiness? So it's kind of like really showing the contradiction in one's desires versus one's actual behavior. And so why on earth, it's saying, would you engage in such wasteful negative actions, such as being immersed in the petty amusements of life, rather than really dedicating your life to the Dharma? And say it's really beggars belief.
어다 근데 체육권도 되게 용하게 주 아니 장주가 선다 돈이 도배 셔라 되게 돼 아니 냠슬랑 고래서 디 냠슬 말랑 왔잖아 디 냠슬 말랑 왔잖아 랑 젠젠다 단지 머리베 샤완도 주네 아니 저가서데 다 샤완도 주네 다디 초라 아니 양디 다 데라 가보치네 주대부터 왔다 너 되게 요랬어
So it's really kind of, so it's really saying, that you are presented with the solution, really, of really dedicating your actions based on the mind of enlightenment, combined with the wisdom realizing emptiness, as to creating the causes for enlightenment itself. Whereas here you're leaving all that aside, and you are motivated by self-grasping and self-cherishing attitudes, and it's just in the case of being clinging to the negative actions of this life. And so you're saying this is a mistake. You're making a mistake, and you need to actually really think about transforming your attitude.
먼저 가르쳐는 대화 리고 대화 뭐에 미디어 동에 동에 파 매워 맞아 동에 용한 데는 딱 지금 넣어 되고라 가리 넣거든 귤을 넣어 되고 열봐 귤을 넣어 되도 아니 거기서데 귤이 넣어 되도 아니 거 대회 대화대 대회 좀 맞아 미드가 동에 유튜브한테 아니 미드가 동에데 랑수고 가서나 그 대다 모두 계좌 말봐 저번에 귤이 제서 장거 여와서 귤 동에 첨바이나 동에 귤 첨바는 저번 동에 귤 대회 귤 첨바이나 저번 대화 용거죠 아니 그 제보라 라와 요 말이야. 다 라와데 가서 유이 간다 요데 유이 간다 삽사 제마도 봐 이마이나 아니 제보다 랑수고 용 되게 도와. 그러와. 대화 되고나 대외 규가리 막 뭐죠. 대화데 지금 때도 되게 되고 요데 때도 되게 주대 장중서다 돈이 더 베셔라 이제 디 규라 라바이나 제보 아니 배 때도 되게 용에 되고 라와 요 말와. 라와 요 말아. 다 미디베 동해에 대 얘네 동해 요 란진데 단지 머리배 안에 꾸네라네 다디 온게 두번데 미디베 동해에 대 동해에 라수 오잖아 가도 죽나만 소데 제벌 라오면 도와 좋아 라오 여바디 규이 가서 삽사다 규이 가서 삽사 제마도나 안에 제벌 라오 요 말와
So here, the criticism here refers to the cause, and here's what I say: there is a mistaken causal attitude. That's where the fault lies. It's not on whether what we want and what we don't want is the issue. The issue is that here it's the causes that are created is where the problem lies, because the result it has no volition of its own. The result is dependent upon the causes that lead to that result. And so, if you're creating undesirable causes, you're going to experience undesirable results. So it's as simple as that. And that if you want to have desirable results, presumably happiness, then you must actually accumulate desirable causes that will actually lead to that result. And that means that the actions that you engage in should be motivated by the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness, as at best. And it's very important that we are careful around this and that we don't make the wrong choices. And let's leave it there for today. And again, to reflect on the merit field in which our Guru Munindra Buddha is present.
아니 되네 다 가자제 저 감송 조아리로 가봐 깨와 이마 이나야 아니 저거 다 가자 동해래 맞대버서 다 동해 교회 동해 다 가자 차바 두제가 동해래 맞대버서 차바 두제가 동해데 지금 다저 빵마도 와이나 아니 동해 셔바데 니가 땐 지금 예도 어딘데 이마 인도 다 가자 저거 샤바 두제가 동해 그 상황도 주바 인사베 젤라 다 가자 저거 되라다 저거 거서도 동해 다 좋다 동해 그 뉴스로 제대로 동해 그 뉴스 제대 안 되는 게 와줘 연구 지고 여봐줘 연구 공부시 아니 근데 연구 예배 로데 랑게 지고라 이게 밤질을 줘서 삼자체 밤대가 셈도샤 밤 용서 줘발 아니 배마 담아 줘바치 줘서 삼자체 다 아니 지난 그 최근에 이번에 유대인들 주바서 뒤상 요 말에서 커다 줘바죠 공부시 아니 대대 예배 로데 아니 가서데 이게 홍질을 줘서 삼자 홍 요소 줘발래다 로다 가자 저 배마 담아 줘버는데 이게 홍질 삼자 홍 요소 줘발래 님의 친구 약하고 줘서 삼사차 다 되네 예사 지난 최근에 유대인 주바 두상 매도 다 되네 중앙이셔 조사면도 때내 종업도 조사면도 때내 임바이자 다 semje 탐제도 산제 고바 두고이나 좀나 다 줍투에 제대 샤서다 뒤규 디게들 라바이나 다 줍투에 샤 때내 다 맞아 타면 제 요한이도 줍투가 지금 상사 자주가 semje 고 때내 그 두바 데 녜벨로디 아니 가서 이게 아찔라 주소 상사 아양서 주와래 다외 정권 약하와제 아니 님의经过그 때도 내 소서 때는 반대자가 라마를 보지 다게 지워변 가지 구수도 좀 무주서 순대자 당배 가서 패 니베 가서 쇼 순배건 텐션 산제 고마마도 어째서 다 야고시고 총소 소다 라마투베가 배 잡어도 주소 다 야고시고 총소 소 가고.
And so then we reflect on the three realms of existence, this whole reality of cyclic existence. Wherever we are born in those three realms, we never get beyond suffering. We have to experience the suffering of change, and most particularly pervasive suffering. And because of that, we really never get beyond. And that pervasive suffering also has this insidious quality of inducing the suffering and the suffering of change, merely by the fact that we are here. And so this then is symbolized, this notion of wanting to gain release from this reality, the renunciation which goes, finally, I've had enough, I want definite emergence from a cyclic existence, is symbolized by the syllable BAM. And this BAM at our hearts, at our crown, is transformed into the lotus mandala disc, then reflecting how all inner and outer phenomena lack any objective existence, merely imputed by thought, and just reflecting on this reality of how any self-existing or objectively existent I or self is not found within the body-mind continuums, but it's really arriving at this point of the mere negation of that reality, of the mere negation of the object of negation. Placement of mind brings forth that which symbolizes that wisdom, the syllable hung. And that hung, again, on our crown is transformed into the sun mandala seat. And then, based on that reflection, we realize that phenomena, because they have no independent existence, must then therefore arise in dependence. They are dependent arisings. And this allows for the cause and effect paradigm to exist and to validate it. Therefore, I can have the aspiration to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, simply by the fact that I can accumulate the necessary causes, the correct causes that will lead to that result. And so that is symbolized by the syllable A. And not only to be able to attain that state of enlightenment, but to quickly be able to attain that state of enlightenment. This mind of enlightenment, symbolized by the syllable A, on top of the is transformed into the moon disk mandala seat on our crown. Then we utter the invocation verse: "O glorious and precious root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my crown. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind." At the end of the first recitation, the figure moves from the merit field, and then at the end of the second recitation have arrived at our pre-prepared seat. And at the end of the third, again, we have that beautiful affirmation that the Buddha will remain and until we attain the state of enlightenment. We again rejoice at this great assistance. Then we offer the 7 limbs of practice and the mandala to the Guru Buddha on our crown.
Rawana Maduani Mazda, what that ten Rawana Maduans, what that ten joined, ten joined, you can charge a letter, what to watch in the Takada, and ten join. If I jump to Jenny, and Dilatena and Jigger. Sanjay Kuma to Yabani to a channel. That's the Sanjay Kuma to a general matter to the subject of the Sanjay Kuma. They are new to do to a chicken Santana logic, and then never lotte. Achila, I also jubale, and Daijaba Yaka show some centimeter. And the Pandesa Lama, Talininga, the Kajakuso to Jomoto, so that Lama to the Rangichibone, Marshun, Tabekas, Nibekas, Subel Tension, Sanja Kumamato, Jason Taya was shoot, some such Ranginigos, Lama to be on the state, needed them in the Danish, Tika, the Doji Kaba Sanga, Chakaja Kaje, G. Tagoto, and it to be Sanga died on Monument Mass. Monument Mamas are Boston Continent, the Jamaica, Marabas that is Suiko. The net Tendig, the Sunga Oyata, Shamana, you saw the Boston Court was Tilish. You saw the Lama to be on one never tea. And it Chibon, because of Kusunto, the section, Chibon, Rangin, Chibon, can't take about the Vegi Channel, Rangin, because of Luke during a child, Vegi Channel, and it Tomaman, take what the Kavadu and the Takan sojo ma jo miza zuen chama tsu nga jen nakse no za lo da le chwa ta kan je cheba khana ba ra shin khana ma to be ne ba che de che nga ma ti nga ma de to ma me ba sa di ba ka je sa ba ta kan je so da ga to ba da ga wa chan ju se ba la ba da ga sa nga da se da ga pa da ma la mo che mo lo lo jo sa ba da kun jo so lo ne be le je ta be che bo pa be ji de lo ko da ba sim je la ne be le to na to de da ta be ge zu jo ko da ni so ni dong so chi je ba zhang zhe da ba chu so sa ja ta kan je 다가는 이제 다 점제 탐제 산제 고마 주베라 아니 랑게 류데 타주 고도 랑게 류게 나자 근데 셈게 동에 아니 조시 코마 자 롱틀레 견거래 마 장시 다소서 아도도 아니 배 뉴도 산제 고마 타메 나제 견다제 다고도 가나타제 다바라 잡아제 차도 야고 시우 중소 사도 고마차.
And so again, we reflect on renunciation, the fact of being trapped in cyclic existence, never beyond the state of suffering, and wanting to gain definite emergence from that. That is symbolized by the syllable BAM at our heart center now, this transforming into the lotus mandala seat. Again, reflecting on the I, looking for that inner and outer in all phenomena, not finding that sense of an objectively existence, a self-powered I, arriving at that point of the mere negation of the object of negation, which is symbolized by the syllable Hung, which transforms into the sun mandala seat at our heart center. And then that, following on from that, as a consequence of the lack of any objective existence being found, confirming the validity of the law of cause and effect, and to really, when I say or when I make the aspiration, may I quickly attain a state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, I see the absolute possibility of that now, and that is the mind of enlightenment, as symbolized by the syllable A, which transforms into the moon mandala seat at my own heart center. And then again, the invocation verse to invite the Guru Buddha on our crown down to the pre-prepared seat at our heart center. Oh, glorious and precious Guru, come take your lotus with moon seat placed here at my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first recitation, the figure moves down through my crown chakra into the central channel. And then at the end of the second recitation, the figure arrives at my pre-prepared seat at the heart center. And at the end of the third, again, we have that beautiful confirmation that the Buddha will remain until we attain that state of enlightenment ourselves. We rejoice in that. And then the petals of the lotus fold over and are joined at their, sealed at their tips by a white 5-pronged vajra. Then that is surrounded by 3 mantras: the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination in a clockwise direction. As soon as that is established, then light rays begin to emanate from the Buddha within, permeating through every cell of my body from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet. effecting a thorough purification of all negativities and obscurations that I've accumulated since beginningless time, including all of the 10 non-virtues, being the killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, or lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and idle gossip, and covetousness, malicious intent, and wrong view. All negativity is associated with this life, the one previous to this, the one previous to that, going back in time to beginningless time, and all the countless rebirths I've had since then, that all of those negativities have been completely purified, including also any of the naturally occurring negativities, as well as all those actions proscribed by the Buddha, all of the vows of infractions and downfalls associated with the Pratimoksha vows, or the Bodhisattva vows, or the Tantric vows, and all of the anything I've shown disrespect towards my parents, up to my gurus, any negativities associated with the body, resulting in illness and sickness and so on, that might impede my spiritual practice. And similarly, negativities associated with mental problems, mental issues, that again might impede my practice of the sacred Dharma. All of these are completely purified. That all of the imbalances in the elements of the body, and the channels, winds, and drops, are also completely and utterly rebalanced, realigned in my body. And in particular, that which really prevents me from quickly being able to attain the state of enlightenment, namely my ordinary appearance, or that ordinary perception, is transformed into pure perception.
다 lama shaja sanga kuchung to ngo yeme juwa nediya gaso nediya ane gaso de negu gyön taja tena lama shaja sanga dabe shidu juto sa ra lama shaja kuchung to ngo yeme juwa de ane jiga to nala rashi meba chi kongpa chi ane di tuga le lama shaja sanga pado meba chune ane simja tham cha lama shaja sanga cha sangwa re shuwa la tena simja teta thanja ja re lama shaja sanga kuchu dongo yime ju teta ge nesa ge ne teta ne kyun ta lama shaja sanga dawe shido ju so so ta simja thanja lama shaja tu sala ko ge sa ni ma tere ko to ka ko o ta ya bo shi chu samsa ane simja thanja lama shaja sanga sala ko ba te je do su ge wa ka tu ba te tu ge so so che ba kanga ane 유대는 좀 두장 요마리 선상에 이 아니 대화제 동반에 대돈 있으면 시제소 서서 공부하자.
And then through the combination of my own most subtle wind acting as the substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of a Buddha. And through the combination of my own most subtle consciousness acting as the substantial cause, together with the consciousness of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind or consciousness is transformed into the enlightened consciousness of a Buddha. I see myself now, my body, speech, and mind is inseparable from that of an enlightened being. This is really a wonderful. I experience a sense of bliss which combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness. The place I am in is also transformed from its degenerate state into the palatial abode of an enlightened being. And then, seeing myself as completely indivisible in body, speech, and mind from an enlightened being, and also lacking any inherent existence, I send out countless rays of light, equal in number to all of the beings and all the realms of existence. And upon dissolving into them, They are also purified of all fault. They attain all positive qualities and they spontaneously arise as fully enlightened beings. The place that they are in also is transformed of all fault and becomes the palatial abode of enlightened beings. And then I really rejoice in what has occurred here. And this is wonderful. Today is the day I've been able to lead all sentient beings to that state of enlightenment. How amazing, how auspicious. I see the leading of all sentient beings to that state of enlightenment. I see the virtue that has facilitated that. I see myself as the agent of that virtue, as all completely lacking in any objective existence and merely imputed by thought. And this notion produces a sense of bliss again. And combining with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
다 단다 데 삼로 되는 뭐 이제 거 문에 단다다 레라고 줘 말와 이내 단다 삼로 땅와디 로다 삼로 땅와니 시 문에 거라 때다 뉴도 용화 쇼 선다 뭐지 규리 규어 쇼 보다들이 다들이 용화라 라니 산제 고마 토고다 디토와라 라니 장주가 돈 되면 싫어가 냠리 제거도 와 냠리 제거도 다들이 이거도 다 가르쳐 버렸으나 다랑이 기부 주나 두고 주나 내단 근데 차와이나다 타마치와 이내야 되게 그가 내가 되게 타마치와 이내 자주에서 돈이 더 싫어하고 아니 그래서 싫어하게 아니 가서 튕겨를 주었지 보다 되게 얘네들 튕겨를 주었지 보다들이 용도가 지금 했어도 어디를 그 남들 제도가 지금서 어디를 그 담제샤 뭐지 어디를
And of course, we know we're operating at the level of aspiration and imagination here. This certainly doesn't simply manifest as quickly or as easily as that. Yet, in my dedication, I make a very sincere and heartfelt dedication that I will do my best to be able to, lay down the causes to really make this a reality as quickly as possible. And knowing that that means that those causes are motivated by the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness. And I must be able to see and perceive every situation as a conducive situation for applying those motivations. Really, whatever is occurring for me, whether it's a positive or a negative or a moment of happiness or sadness, or even in sickness and even at the point of death, may I always hold that motivation dear, that whatever I'm thinking will be enacted upon, and that motivation will be based on the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness, and that ensuring that what I am visualizing and aspiring to will be made manifest as quickly as possible if I am able to see all of situations arising for me as conducive conditions for engaging in actions motivated by this, and not see any situation as inconducive. Yoduda Lama Gyune Dramalupa Marsho Panam ke Panyam Paya Angong Marsho Tawarem Poche Make 为口为心康的肯当的王我正为内全瑞西光天经家周一下配西对把度肯有情最为特真全配 Dream campaign one jump tu can song kapa lo sang dry Ishab lo so water me say way to dream campaign one jam ngang campaign tu kiến tông ca lo sa so me te wei te chen chen Dreaming can pay one yang gang can pay so can dong You are Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of compassion, not aimed at true existence, and Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception, Tsongkhapa, crown, jewel of the sages of the land of snows, Losang Drakpa, at your feet I make requests.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gana.
Thank you, everyone.